Hi, I'm Dean. Today I'm going to give a demonstration about the hijacking of the human consciousness with a bit of a explanation using a couple of props. Now, first of all, this is a human. So we have different levels. We've got our incarnate self, we've got our soul self, oversoul self, and then you've got avatar and rishi. These are higher kind of consciousness levels or layers, and they operate, or they exist in different dimensional bands or different frequency layers. Now, as you can see, we've got a plug at the end, and this connects to the one infinite creation source of all energies and all things. Now, this is our connection. This is our connection to the, we'll call it the main center of the universe, or all things. So we're going to assume that this is going to be plugged in. Can't plug it in because my computer plugs into this and it's on minimal at the moment, which is interesting. So what we have is we have the power coming in from above and going through our layers or our levels of ourself. Now, we know that we are presently, because if you can see this video, you're presently incarnate or spying, and we're on this particular level. So we can assume that we're plugged in to this particular socket right now. This is our current existence in the physical 3D realm or universe, which is a whole band. So we've got like the whole band. Now, most of us on the planet aren't even really aware that we've got a soul identity on this next band across, or on this next band up, until we die, and then it's pretty obvious. Once we die, our consciousness shifts our focus to this particular band. Now, these all exist at the same time, but wherever we're plugged into is where our focus or our attention or our consciousness is, and that's our actual presence. So our afterlife, or before life, or in between lives, is usually on this kind of presence. But we also sense our awareness to these other layers. But when we're incarnate, there's actually a little box around this which is quite handy. When we're incarnate, we're kind of blocked off to these sorts of things. Now, you'd be aware that there's an awakening type of a process underway where we're becoming more aware of this level, or these higher levels, and starting to sense these higher bands of frequency or dimensional realms, we can call them. So we're kind of trying to merge these and let the soul kind of operate a little bit more of these layers, so that we can kind of spread a little more rather than being confined into just this little one. Now, apparently our natural state really is having these all connected, so that when we're incarnate, we have some of the wisdom and some of the knowledge channeling kind of through the board down to the incarnate, to kind of have the life experiences for the incarnate body. Carne meaning flesh, so the incarnate body, and running this kind of puppet show sort of thing with all these little toy human bodies. Now, this can represent both the individual human person being, and this can also represent the entire human collective. It's all connected. It's all the same structure. It's all the same thing. So this can represent all humans. This can represent all souls. This can represent all oversouls, and so forth. For the reason of this explanation, we have this reincarnation cycle where the soul level is wanting to be learning all these different life experiences and runs this kind of cycle of learning and that sort of thing. But it appears that this cycle has been hijacked by a completely different set of power, and this is a problem, apparently, because what it is it's not plugged in. It's actually decided as its own entity, as its own separate entity. It's decided to unplug itself from the power of Source and plug itself into here for its power. And what it's done is it's kind of blocked itself across here, like that. And it's tricking the humans, the incarnate humans, and the souls and the oversouls into kind of believing that we don't have this connection, this power source of power to Source. And this is the suppression. This is how we've been kind of systematically suppressed down to think that we're only this. And you know, we've got to a stage where almost all of the world doesn't really even believe in these levels of ourselves, which is the objective of this parasite, which is hijacking our system. Now it's playing a game called duality, where we have a positive and a negative. We have a positive on one side and a negative on the other side. So we've got a positive path and a negative path, right? So we're kind of being led to either a negative path, which runs off from our central path, or like a negative path. Now, as you know, the electricity has a positive and a negative charge to complete the circuit. So we have the El, Elohim. The electrical charge runs through the source cables as a current, like a currency, such as currency like money. So we've got this, this power charge of money linked to the flow of the energy and the way that the power is extracted and channeled, such as the pyramid-shaped capitalist structure of our financial world, which replicates the structure of our governing, which is sending power up, same as the points on churches and that sort of thing. The game is about sending our power up into these guys here, so that they can keep extracting and harvesting our positive and our negative, whichever way around that was before. But our true path is neutral, doesn't have this polarity of positive or negative, and the positive and the negative is what generates more and more power. We're bringing more power in from our main cord to try and fuel this conflict that we're having within ourselves and within each other. Because the more resistance that there is, the more power needs to come to fuel it, to feed it, to pay for it. So they've created this duality game where we're in conflict. We're in conflict with our own mind, our own thoughts, with our own family and friends, with each other's businesses and everything really in society, government and sports. Everything's to do with this red versus blue, this positive versus negative, the left versus right. You know, it's carried across everything, because everything is about divide and conquer. Everything's about dividing us into these two polarities, so that these two sides of this entity can be acting as the beneficiary of all this power, so that it doesn't need to be connected to source. So it's feeding off the power that it's generating from us. Common questions that come up are who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, and are there people helping us, and are there people that are hindering us? And this is what catches a lot of people out, because we're it. You know, we are it. We are us. We don't need any external support or help, because, you know, we've got that. We're connected to it. We're connected to an infinite source of all power, and these guys just simply aren't. So we don't need any extra help. But we've been tricked into believing that there's a positive side that is trying to help us and a negative side that's trying to hurt us, and that we can choose one of the two options. One is the negative path, which is known as service to self, or one is the positive path, which is known as service to others. So we've been convinced to be good and be positive and turn our negatives into positives and send love and light outward, send positive love and light outward, and there are to combat and neutralize the negative that other people are sending outward as well. But all this is doing is adding to the current that's coming through. We're not actually channeling it back to ourselves and using it for what its purpose is, because it's being bred, it's being extracted or farmed up in this kind of junction. So the more positive that we're sending out, and the more positive that we're thinking or doing or acting, it brings an equal amount of power through the current, see, that it must balance with the negative. And what's happening a great deal is that many people believe that the positive can overcome the negative and overpower. So if we put everything into the positive over this side, then all the people can rise up and overpower the other people that have the negative path to make the whole world positive. But we don't want that, because all that's going to do is put the whole world over onto this. It's going to move it. It's going to move it across with these guys with it, and basically bring the balance of power over to the positive side of this entity. Or it can go the other way and take it over to the negative side of this entity. Now another thing we have is transhumanism, where we're making these physical bodies electronic and computerized and smart, quote unquote, intelligent or artificial intelligence, where we're having electrical devices and technologies that are keeping our physical incarnate bodies alive and programmable and controllable, so that the soul self doesn't have any say in the operation of the incarnate. So the idea for the way that the suppression's been going is basically currently we've been in this loop. We've been in this loop between the soul realm and the human realm, back and forth, well, the incarnate realm, back and forth, and they're keeping us in this cycle, in this continuous cycle, and suppressing and manipulating and affecting it so that we're not actually growing and reconnecting. It's going the opposite direction, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to a stage where the soul has no need to be in a human body, into an incarnate body, because it's just not needed. It's not of any use, because the incarnates are being taken over by the electricity of the computer age in the world. So the soul is being used less and less and less. And what's basically happening is the closer that this gets down to the bottom, the more control, con is a trick, the more control that this entity has over all the humans. It's more and more programmable and easier to control, and they have access to more of the power that's being pulled or generated from source, which is the power struggle that we're seeing. We've got this pyramid of power, which is basically what's being demonstrated here. So the solution is not giving up our power, really, not giving away our power, not feeding the trolls, not feeding the controllers, because they're invisible to us. They stay above our perception. If our perception was here, they would be there. If our perception was in the soul realm, they're the invisible controllers that you may know of from any kind of life in between life therapy, hypnotherapy sessions that people have done. And they are moving more down because our physical selves just can't perceive even the subtle energy so much, and especially when we are transhuman, we'll be completely kind of left-brained and perceiving only what we're programmed to perceive at all. So this is how they've been able to kind of move closer and closer down to tighten the grip of this power, continuously generating our energy to the positive or to the negative. So, as I was saying, the solution is to not be negatively polarized and not be positively polarized, so that we're not actually extracting all this extra power from our source to feed these guys. And if we keep it to ourselves and remain neutral, we can hit this singularity point, which is without duality, which is direct perception, which is enlightenment, basically, not the state of non-judgment and non-duality, and as I said, direct perception. And from this, we're not sending out our energy to be caught in this net, like internet or network, or net as in, you know, net payments, when you've been paid money and it's been taxed and that sort of thing. And this eventually will give us the ability to eject that out, because it won't be getting fed anymore, and we'll have all the power for ourselves. We can get rid of this parasite, and then we can go about our incarnation business again, without being manipulated and affected by this other force. And that's it in a nutshell.